All right, so I'm going to make an attempt today to speak to you on a glorious topic, the topic of elections. I hope you're prepared for this. I hope you're ready for this. I've done a couple of videos. This is my new Patreon series. I've been doing this new Patreon series, and I've decided to bring a kind of jazz radio vibe to my third installment of the Patreon series. I've decided we need a smooth jazz vibe. I've decided we need to enter the chill zone because some of these have been not so chill. Some of these have been deeply personal existential crises. And we have to continuously innovate. We have to continuously evolve. So we're bringing a totally different vibe. I can see into the future. I see things are changing. I see things are developing, and I'm happy to see that. I think life is about cycles, and life is about decisions. You have different decisions to make. You have different options in front of you, and there's no perfect decision. Every decision you make is exclusive of something else. So there's always room for regret. No matter if you make the best choice, you're always abnegating, sacrificing, relenting. You're always surrendering something to gain something else because we're limited, we're finite, we only have so much time and energy. The fact that I'm making this video means I'm not sleeping. The fact that I'm letting my hair grow out means I'm not cutting it. The fact that, all of the decisions that I make and all the decisions that you make are really exclusive. You can't do two things at the same time. You cannot multitask. That is not possible. You can maybe choose one coalition or basket of decisions over another over a period of time, but you're still excluding one basket over another. There is almost never a situation where you were truly forced to do anything. This is the reality of slavery. You were never truly forced to save your own life or to save the lives of others or to not hurt people. You always have the choice to think evil thoughts. You have the choice to despair. You have the choice to give up. You have the choice. You have a kind of agentic free will as far as your own internal state is concerned, your thoughts. So, people who don't believe that are making a choice. They're making a choice to believe that there's no evidence for determinism. And, even if there was, you could simply say, well, I'm determined to never despair. Or in this particular situation, I've determined that, such and such is the only course of action. It's my belief. Some people have a belief that they are destined for failure no matter what they do. Other people have a belief that they are destined for victory and salvation no matter what they do. And as far as I'm concerned, those are choices. Now, again, you could say that's a determined character, that some people are born into this world as winners. Some people are born losers. But that itself is a belief that you have to choose to believe. So it's a kind of endless regression. And I've always felt that people who are open to the idea of free will, people who are open to the idea that they have a choice, end up making different kinds of choices. Now, again, you could say even the belief in free will is a predetermined belief, or you necessarily believe that. But if you believe that, if you continue that endless series, because to me, determinism is an endless causal chain. Determinism, to me, states that there is one thing that ever happened, and that one thing was the first cause, and it was a unitary cause. And the reason why it was a unitary cause is because all causes must, resolve in a singular cause. Otherwise, you get this ad infinitum, which I suppose some people are comfortable with that. They would say, well, yes, there's an endless number of various causes, and there is no single point of origin for anything. I think even if that were somehow true in terms of physical space, like you could say, well, the universe is eternal, it has no beginning or end, and it's also infinite, meaning there's no limit to the amount of stuff, and therefore, you can conceive of it as an infinite number of points in an infinite field of space over an infinite period of time. And because everything is infinite in all dimensions, therefore, there is no single point of origin for anything. It's like, in a tree, for example, you have a seed, which is the single point of origin for the tree, and up comes the stalk, which becomes the trunk, and then off come the branches and the leaves. But you could simply say that there are a bunch of these parallel and intersecting lines which never resolve into a single point and never can be traced back to a single point because they've always been these separate entities. There's always been these frictionless billiard balls bouncing around in space, bouncing off each other, becoming infinitely... to my mind, if that were true, that the universe was infinitely expanding, we would eventually come to a point of deep freeze because every piece of matter or element of matter in the universe would become infinitely far apart from one another, and there would be no interaction between atoms because they would be infinitely far apart from one another, and they would have an infinitely small chance of ever colliding with each other. So if the universe was eternal, then that's what I would expect to be the case today. In fact, if the universe is eternal with no beginning or no end, like, for example, if I ran a simulation, let's say I ran a simulation where I have some billiard balls bouncing around and they're knocking into each other and they're interacting and so on. But then as they hit off of each other, they go in these random directions in a frictionless system. And so they're just constantly expanding with respect to each other. Or another way to think about it would be the points are becoming infinitely small. And whichever way you think about it, whether space is expanding or these points of matter are condensing or shrinking, the probability of their interaction approaches 1 divided by infinity, right? It becomes infinitely small. It approaches 0. And so if there really was no beginning or end to the universe, you couldn't even say, well, if life arose, early on within this experiment, then maybe this deep freeze wouldn't happen yet. We could come before the deep freeze. But the problem with eternity is that whole concept of inserting yourself at a particular point in time in the eternal process is almost, it's not just it is infinitely improbable, and therefore the probability basically is 0. So in a universe that is infinitely expanding, and each particle is becoming infinitely small, or space is becoming infinitely large, then the probability of life emerging within such a universe is infinitely small, or as close as possible to 0 as we can conceive of. So to me, the idea that the universe has no definite beginning, or at least no cyclical nature to it, is not just very improbable, it is actually the most improbable thing, to the point that I would say it is impossible. It's not conceptually impossible. We could assert that even though something is literally infinitely improbable, 1 divided by infinity is still a chance. I suppose you could assert that, but it doesn't sound reasonable to me. Unless there is a matter generator, unless we violate the laws of thermodynamics and we say, as the universe expands outward, we're also going to randomly generate new matter, so that it's not infinitely far apart, it's not infinitely small, and therefore interactions can happen, chemistry can arise, and life can emerge. If there was some way of conceiving of life outside. Well, we are what we are. Like, we empirically observe ourselves as being material, as being our bodies are composed of matter. I suppose you could say that there's some kind of Boltzmann brain thing. I still don't entirely get that concept, but you could say that maybe this is a simulation, and instead of running on physical computers, we live in a universe where computers can sort of arbitrarily generate at any time. But at that point, it's just totally incoherent nonsense. Like, you don't have a theory of reality. Again, you're just asserting something that really has no resemblance to reality. You're just kind of asserting it on the force of trying to get around what is a simpler conclusion, which is that if life exists, if we're made of matter, if we, are composed of matter, then that means that the chance of us existing is not infinitely small / impossible, because I'm not even sure there's a difference between those two things. And therefore, the universe is not infinitely expanding. I mean, that would be my argument. Well, guys, for the rest of this episode, which actually is supposed to be about political decisions, not about the probability that the universe is infinite or cyclical or whatever, it's going to be behind the paywall. I have to satisfy. I had 2 people sign up. I've actually had multiple people unsubscribe. So it's net negative. we're in the red. It's net negative. We're quickly losing. The ship is sinking. But as long as there's 2 subscribers out there, I think I can say that's an audience. There's 2 people who want to hear what I have to say, and they get to hear what I have to say from behind the paywall. So that's where it's going to be. Of course, with these videos, the Patreon link is in the description. It's $3 for a one-time payment. If you don't want to sign up, but there's a topic you're really interested in, I've really teased you, and you say, okay, it's worth $3. Then you can do it that way, or it's $15 a month. Of course, if I don't produce 5 videos a month, then what's the point? I suppose, I don't know. I get less money, or every transaction they take a percentage out. So I suppose I have to do a minimum of 5 videos to justify that. Or I have to do something else. I have to do 6 videos or more or something. Anyway, if I'm going to make that many videos, then we need to get on with it. We need to get behind the paywall. You guys know the drill. I'll see you on the other side.